Surely, no matter what part of the world you are accompanying us from, you will have heard mention of the evil eye, strong gaze, envious gaze, evil eye, malevolent eye, envy of the sight, envious sight, and similar things. There is an incredible number of ways to define it, but the fact is that in general there is a belief about a kind of harm caused just by the look of certain people. The harm can be very varied. It can be from harming the person themselves, harming their goods, harming a baby, a little animal, even to envy itself. It is a deeply rooted belief, and it certainly may be an ancient belief, but it is not a belief that has disappeared. It is a belief that is incredibly current. Don't believe me? Come along with me. Let's walk a bit through the stony streets of mystery. Tales from the dark side, ghosts, strange beings. Let's go a little back in time, to the 70s. In the 70s, Colombia, in a place Tunja, there lived a girl of about 10 or 11 years old. Everyone knew her as Vicky. Vicky came and went. Her mother devoted herself to housework, that is to say that besides cleaning her own house, she cleaned other people's houses and frequently traveled from her municipality to the big city to help in the houses of people who had income. She was very well known because she had 3 or 4 characteristics, among which were honesty, cleanliness, punctuality, and seriousness. She was the kind of person who was very cared for and very appreciated. When Vicky was old enough to accompany her mother, she accompanied her and also helped her because some of those houses were truly enormous. And that was where it happened the first time. They arrived at the house of that young lady, in an area known as Villa de Leyva, a gigantic French-style house. It had many rooms, it had a lot of space, and only that young lady and another very elderly woman who lived in another room lived there. She was a very kind person, very affectionate. As soon as they arrived at the house, she received Vicky and her mother with a breakfast. You are not going to start working without having breakfast. Listen, miss, but it's that they're not going to start anymore. And she served her something that she had not even imagined because she had never in her life tried it, and it was orange juice. They knew many things. They ate well, they lived well, they worked, and in their house they had from little animals, chickens behind the house, an orchard. They were country people who had a quite decent life. But money is never too much. The fact is that that young lady treated them with all affection, and it was a house where there were so many things to see, so astonishing, that of course the first instruction was one, don't touch anything. That's simple. Don't touch anything. Everything here can be very fragile and very expensive, so please don't touch anything. Second, whenever the young lady asks you something, answer kindly. If she offers you something, accept it, and that's it. Don't ask for anything if it's not offered to you. No. Well, yes, Vicky knew about this. She had accompanied her mother in other houses, but this one was so impressive. The paintings, the porcelain plates with colored doilies underneath, and that hallway. That was what impressed her the most when she went out to sweep the hallway. That had no equal, because this woman collected violets. Yes, flowers called violets. She had several types, so as soon as she went out, she was left stunned. She could not take her eyes off those flowers that looked like they were made of velvet. She didn't know them. She knew the name, she knew they existed, but in her house they didn't have them. In her house they had many flowers, but not violets. And they are delicate to care for, you know. They are very sensitive. They require 2 or 3 things. One of them is affection. Those flowers without the affection of their owner don't thrive. Second, music. The young lady had a sort of record player with which she put music for her flowers while she attended to them every day early, with a little pitcher watering them one by one, removing the leaf that is ugly, loosening them a little, saying nice words to them. But it was a collection, so she probably would devote the whole morning to that. Vicky could not take her eyes off them, just like that. She couldn't. All of that was gorgeous. Also, the flower pots were delightful. The way there were all these arrangements, the benches where they sat to enjoy a warm afternoon, until finally her mother arrived and gave her a tug on the ear and said to her, "What are you waiting for? We have to work." and she began to sweep and finished what she was doing shortly before leaving and breaking rule number 1 that they had told her she dared to ask permission to go back to see the violets. The young lady, of course, agreed, and when they said goodbye, she even gave her a couple of little gifts, things like some little candies and things like that. She was a very affectionate woman, and Licha made a very good impression on her. The following week, Vicky is very happy, all dressed up to go to the big city to work at the young lady S house with the idea of the marvelous things that were there. But, to her sadness, her mother informs her that she is not going to go. She insists as to why simply the young lady is not in the mood for that because she is sick. The young lady had called on the phone to the store, which is where the phone was, to ask them not to come. All her violets had saddened and died. They had withered until they were no longer recoverable for some inexplicable reason, even though they had been cared for, even though she had watered them as always with her music, the flowers had died. Vicky did not understand what the problem was or why that would have happened, but it stuck with her. It stuck with her because she had a strange feeling, a feeling that is not very common to have, but she had that certainty that there was something in her that had caused the problem with the flowers. And it's that also Lisa had this uncomfortable ability that she didn't tell anyone. But when the grandfather was going to die, she knew he was going to die, and she went to see her grandfather to tell him, "Grandpa, I think you are going to die." And the grandfather, of course, opened his eyes very wide and almost gave her 3 slaps, but the girl insisted, "Grandpa, it's that I think you are going to die." And the grandfather died, and very shortly after, but he was a very intelligent man. So before dying, he left everything arranged because he paid attention to his granddaughter, and he told the grandmother. And the grandmother understood that Vicky was not just any person, she was a different person. The days go by, and the days turn into weeks, and the weeks are changing. Until that other week, already a little older, she accompanies her mother to the market. As always, they always go to the market near there, in a very populous place. There is a famous market, and they only went when she was on vacation. They arrived there, and there were countless things, all of them delicious, products from the countryside, from the sea, from the slaughterhouse. There was everything you can imagine. And there were also some clothing stalls where, when she could accompany her mother always bought her some little thing. Although there were times when the mother was very imprudent because in front of all those people, she would try clothes on her over her clothes. That is, "Let's see how this fits you," and she would put, "Well, while it was a dress, there's no problem, but you will have a young lady," and suddenly the underwear and pretending to try it on her, well, it was embarrassing. Then there was the fruit man, a very affectionate man. They had also seen them always. The fact is that day when they arrive there, the daughter-in-law is there, she introduces her. They greet the mother, knows the fruit man well. They have been regular customers, as they say, for years. That is to say that the same man always sells them the products. The fact is that his daughter-in-law is there, and she is carrying a beautiful baby. Beautiful, he is round, with a bright face, with some spectacular light-colored eyes. He hardly has any hair, but he has those chubby arms that make a sort of little slit where the joints are. So chubby he was, so strong he looked. He looked like an absolutely healthy and happy child. The fact is that the daughter-in-law is holding him, and Vicky, S' mother, comes over and says, "What a beautiful baby. Congratulations. Congratulate your husband. So-and-so for me as well. Congratulations, Grandpa. How proud you must be." The fact is that suddenly the child turns to look at Vicky, and smiles at her with all the bare gums without a single tooth. He smiles, and Vicky cannot stop looking at him. And again she felt the same, exactly the same, that feeling from the plants, the feeling that something was wrong. They finished and left. The following week, when Vicky's mother returned, it was to the market, and she asked, and that man confessed to her that the daughter-in-law and the baby were not going to go because the baby was very unwell, very, very unwell. When Vicky's mother asked why, that man told her that they couldn't find a reason, that the child had been very well, he only ate what the mother gave him. No, he was not a child who was exposed, he had been very well cared for, but he had begun to get very sick. It passed. A few days later, the mother goes again and asks about the baby, and well, that man tells her that he had been at death's door, that he almost didn't make it, that in the hospital they couldn't find where from, but that he was already a little better. Several weeks later, that man tells her that finally the baby has already come out of it. He is already well. He is already eating well. He is already healthy, and that it was. Listen, evil eye. How could you think that? Evil eye. I told my daughter-in-law, you have to take care of him, you have to protect him, but she doesn't believe in those things, and so she brought him just like that. Evil eye. Such a beautiful baby, he had to attract attention. Really? Don't tell me that. Well, time passes. A few months later, in the house next door, 2 beautiful little lambs are born. Victoria, who by that time must have been about 14 years old, is a young lady. She is lovely, she is very cheerful. She goes to see them and is captivated. They are 2 young. It's a twin-bearing ewe, one of those that gives birth to 2 young, and they are super cute, tiny, cheerful, playful. They hop around and do all sorts of antics. She keeps looking at them, and for the 3rd time she feels that ugly sensation that something is not right, and she moves away from there. She leaves. 2 days later, the young are dead, and she is inconsolable. The grandmother finds her that day and says to her, "What's the matter with you?" And she says, "I think I harm people and animals and plants." And she begins to tell her that whole series of stories. The grandmother tells her not to worry, that doesn't make sense or anything, but the grandmother is a grandmother of those grandmothers of before, of those grandmothers who knew many things that no one else knows. And she knows that this girl is not normal because also the grandfather before he died told her what she had said. And she had realized certain things, like that day she came and caressed Aunt Eugenia, very affectionately hugged her a lot, and gave her several kisses. And a few days later, she was dead. So she asked her what happened with Aunt Eugenia, and she said, "I saw that she was going to die." You could see she was going to die, you could see it at a glance, but no one even knew she was sick. Then the grandmother asked her, "Did the baby catch your attention?" "Yes, he was a very beautiful baby. Very much." "So you realized that you were distracted just looking at the baby?" "Yes, the little lambs." "Yes, time got away from me, I didn't realize, and I was looking at them." "The little plants?" "The little plants, too." Well, she left it there, the grandmother didn't say more, but after that she kept watching her very carefully. One day the grandmother did a test. She went and brought from the market something very eye-catching. It was a plant with some little tomatoes and some things, and she put it there. One of those pretty plants that draws attention. It's not tomato, but rather little very showy balls of an intense red color. Suddenly, the grandmother, who was sitting around there pretending to separate beans from little stones, is looking at Victoria, when suddenly Victoria goes. She keeps staring at the plant, and you can't get her away from it. The grandmother noticed that, but she also noticed 2, 3 more details. For example, she always walked with her head very bowed. She went to the market with her head completely down. She went to school and didn't want to look at anything, because there those things also happened to her and she was embarrassed for them to notice. For example, the day that guy, he was a very handsome boy, and she stared at him when he was eating his sandwich and the sandwich ended up on the floor. She said it wasn't possible for those things to happen, that it was ridiculous. But they happened to her, and they happened a lot. When someone had something in their hand and she craved it, that person would drop it, and things like that happened to her. The grandmother noticed all these details. But there is a problem, the evil eye. That is, the people who have that gaze, according to belief, and as was said before, is not something that is removed. No, it doesn't go away, even with glasses. It's something you already have, but it can also be useful. Vicky said, today, Doña Victoria, that she learned not to keep staring and to always carry something in her hand. When she went out, she carried from a small rosary that she tied here, and as soon as she felt that something caught her attention, she would take her rosary just to have something in her hand and distract herself. In her house, all the babies had an amulet known as ojo de venado, something that is put on the hand that is to draw the gaze quickly, and when she felt that something was pulling at her, she learned to realize it and to look the other way. There were times when they would say to her, "Ooh, how rude." She didn't care. She preferred that they think she was rude than to get sick because she knew she had that. And sometimes it was very serious because she also knew when a person was sick, when someone was going to die, and when someone had been given the evil eye because she could know it. The problem is that she knew that on many occasions the damage was so advanced that there was nothing to be done. It was rare. But as she recounted when she was already past 50, that went away. She no longer had it. She began to need reading glasses, and then she was happy. She recounted a few years ago that when they put the reading glasses on her for presbyopia, she was happy. Because then she knew that she could look at a baby more closely without causing harm, because for many years she couldn't even look someone in the eyes. Her husband was always very careful, because she was honest and told him what she had. Of course, the other thing, knowing things that never went away. The problem is that if Doña Victoria grabs your hand, you're not going to feel pleasant, it's not nice, you feel a frightful shiver. Those who have gone to her, those who have had that, say that you can tell she is reading you. As soon as she grabs your hand, you feel something. She doesn't deal much with people. She doesn't want to know much about that, only when someone really needs it, or I don't even know if she's still alive. But yes, Doña Victoria knew that she had it. There are other people who don't know what is happening, but it happens. And I'll tell you a story that happened around 2010. A girl is finishing medical school, and within all the protocols and all those endless things that have to be fulfilled to be a doctor, which is quite a complex and quite tiring career, she is assigned to be transferred to the Mexican state of Jalisco to a small rural clinic. She accepts it gladly, apart from the fact that they give her a place to live. There the people of the town take care of her, very affectionate, she is the doctor, the new doctor, and then they arrive with a baby. She got a baby who did not eat, ill, listless, completely discouraged. He was a little boy of about 8-9 months. He had the appropriate height, but he was very wasted. The weight was very low, even though the height was appropriate. And his dimensions revealed that he had had reasonable growth. His weight was very low. The lack of appetite, the loss of spirit. He was a baby who did not move and frequently cried. For a long time she told them that they had to take him to the big city to have tests done. It was indispensable. There she could not know for certain what he had. She could help them by giving them some type of treatment for the fevers that afflicted him, but nothing more. The family accepted that, and they moved him to the capital, to Guadalajara. A series of tests and other things. Weeks pass and they return. The baby does not improve. They bring with them the stack of tests because they have come to trust this doctor, and she reviews them. Even though she is not a specialist, she is a girl with a very high GPA, she is a very studious woman. She begins to read that, and the results do not show a primary failure. The organs are operating well. The problem is that he does not eat. She checks over here and does not find a bacteria or something that reflects a type of infection of some origin. Something viral, there is none. His liver, kidney results, everything is very good, but the little one is out of sorts. And it is then that the nurse, the only nurse there was there, comes over and says to them, "Have you already gone to have him checked for the evil eye?" The doctor laughs a little and says to her, "Calm down. Here we are, doctors here. Here we are clinical. No, we do not recommend that you go to look for evil eye." But that careful and wise woman insists you should take him to have him checked for the evil eye. That family leaves, and indeed, weeks later they come back to see the doctor and thank her, but not her, the nurse. The baby had been cured. They had taken him to an acquaintance of theirs who claimed to know about these things and had given him an endless treatment, had rubbed him with branches, had laid hands on him, had done this and that, had bathed him, and had given them a little sack to carry in his hand. A red little bag, very pretty, always tied to the hand, and he even told them where the damage came from. There was a person in the town who used to have that problem. Several people knew it, but apparently she was not aware. It was a woman. And thinking back, the parents remembered that at some point they had run into this lady who had complimented the boy a lot, and at a certain moment that woman asked permission to touch him, to hold his little hand, but the mother felt distrust and said, "Oh, sorry, it's that we're leaving now." And she left. Grave mistake. Those people said that that was their mistake because they should have let her touch him. Because, listen, because the people who do the evil eye, if they see something beautiful, they must touch it so as not to damage it. And if they see a baby, they must grab him by the little hand, by the little arm, touch him so that that damage does not stay with the baby, but rather returns it. The person will have a headache, but nothing will happen to the baby. Time went by, and shortly before she returned to the capital, she had another very similar case again. This doctor recounted that a little baby girl who must have been probably about 9 months old, had an excellent appearance, super cared for, with her vaccination card complete, with everything in order. They had cared for her a lot, perfectly dressed, bathed, without appetite, whiny, she doesn't sleep, she writhes, she shows clear signs of pain, she doesn't eat anything. And then it was the nurse again, and she asked them something. "By any chance have you come across Mrs. So-and-so, who comes from such a place, who lives in such a place, and I don't know what, and I don't know how much?" And the answer was, "Yes, she is our neighbor. There was a strange silence in there, and you just ran into her 4 or 5 days ago. Did she talk to you about the little baby girl?" "Yes." "How come you didn't let her touch her?" "There wasn't a time, because at that moment I don't know. Take the little baby girl right now so she can touch her." "How could you think that?" "Take her, even if you don't believe it." This doctor recounted that in the midst of something that seemed laughable to her, that she was about to burst out laughing, and say, "Please, Miss Nurse, go over there and finish what you're doing." But those people, still incredulous, accepted. And this doctor said that she herself was not very sure. But it was not the first time she had heard of these things. A teacher had once told them that the main thing is to listen to people. So, well, I'll wait for you here, go. And yes, a few days later they returned with the little baby girl in perfect condition, eating well, sleeping well, rosy, beautiful. They had gone to the neighbor. They had knocked on the door. The neighbor opened and they told her, "Excuse us, but since the day you saw our little baby girl, she's been a little sick." That woman apologized profusely, offered to pay the medical expenses, offered any number of things. Tears came out. She began to cry from sadness. And yes, she admitted that on more than one occasion that had happened to her. That's why she always tried that when she saw a beautiful baby, she touched them. On that occasion, she had not been able to either. The parents of that girl said, "Please, you touch her." And they say, "Yes." She took the baby. She rubbed the little hand a lot, and spoke things to her. She said, "Pretty little baby, now you are going to be well." She touched her little head. She touched her little back. Quite a while she was always with the hand holding her. She touched her. She did this. And that, she made a cross on her forehead. Then she blessed her. Upon arriving home, the girl ate as if it truly were the end of the world, and then fell asleep. And from then on, believe it or not, she did not have problems again. Well, the normal problems. A few months later, the doctor returned to face graduation, specialization, and everything that followed. But in exchange for all that knowledge, she could not forget that strange experience and said, "Look, there are things that we cannot explain, and this is one of them. Nobody believes it, but sometimes it happens. What would you think? And the most surprising thing is that this matter is so ancient, almost like historical humanity itself. I mean that this idea has been present for a few thousand years. The earliest data about protective amulets against the evil eye are found in the archaeological zone of Tel Brak, in the current region of Syria, formerly Mesopotamia. There, a series of small objects were found that included clay figurines with an eye drawn. Among the protections against the evil eye was the Hamsa, which was a combination of the protective hand with an eye. It was such an ancient amulet that it was found at an archaeological site from 3,300 years before Christ. That is to say that we are talking about something that people have believed for at least 5,300 years. The ancient Phoenicians, those fabulous navigators who are believed to have crossed the Atlantic to America, came and went, always placing a drawn eye on the prow of their ship as protection. And of course they have been found practically in all areas of the Mediterranean. In the region of Turkey there existed the nazar, which was nothing other than a kind of amulet with a little eye that is placed in a kind of blue stone. The nazar, as it is also known, was a traditional form of protection about 2,000 years ago and still is. So it is something very ancient, but not for that reason has it stopped being believed.